my name is Leila Mujic, and I'm a freshman at Wesleyan University. I'm a prospective double major in English and film, and I'm an FGLI student from a Title I school in Salt Lake City, Utah. I got matched through the Questbridge scholarship, which was such a blessing. Wesleyan has been exactly what I needed out of the college experience. Like all of the high school seniors this year, I was not able to attend WestFest before starting school. So I am so excited to be able to share with you my experience at Wesleyan and some information to help you learn about where you're headed to this fall. So first, I'm just going to outline some general resources that FGLI students can take advantage of throughout your college experience. One of the first things that every student will go through when they first arrive is new student orientation, where you move in and learn to square dance and talk about the common reading and so forth. FGLI students and international students are invited a few days early to partake in some additional activities and get closer to their groups as part of the First Things First and International Student Orientation. Questbridge kids are not invited as part of the FTF program, so I have not attended, but it's definitely a great way to have students connect with each other. During orientation weekend, there will also be a giant yard sale held called Waste Not, where students from the year before donate their furniture and appliances and so forth to be resold in the fall. This is a great resource if you want to furnish your room, but don't want to pay full price, especially if you can't afford to take home all of your belongings or pay for storage. This year I was able to buy a great lamp, tea kettle, and painting, all for under $10, and was able to then redonate it at the end of the year. If you are going to go to the sale, make sure to go very early and to bring something to carry your items with. The Resource Center is one of the greatest resources to FGLI students on campus. They offer a library of textbooks that can be borrowed throughout the semester, free printing services, a food bank, several clothing drives throughout the year, and a welcome environment to study in. They also try to plan events during breaks for students who stay on campus. Wesleyan has two other libraries, Olin and Exley, which are full of great places to study. The libraries have access to computers and printing, and Exley has several study rooms on the second floor with chalkboards. The biggest advantage that the libraries offer, though, is their access to books. It's pretty obvious, but if you want to save money on textbooks, first check out whether the book is available in the libraries. By checking out as many books as possible, I ended up spending less than $50 on books this year. Another great resource for buying cheap books is from the Textbook Exchange. During the first 2 weeks of classes, the Textbook Exchange buys and sells textbooks on the first floor of Olin for ridiculously low prices. They have a website that will be advertised on the West Admit's Facebook page, so be sure to check if the book you're looking for is available before going. If you're struggling with writing your papers, Wesleyan also offers a writing workshop where you can sign up for a time slot to work one-on-one with another student. They also have a program where you can have a writing mentor for the whole semester. You can meet with your mentor once a week, and at the end get a half credit for your participation. If I remember correctly, FGLI and international students are given some priority for getting the mentors, so definitely take advantage if you'd like to improve your writing skills. I signed up to have a writing mentor this semester, and it was so helpful to be able to review all of my papers with another person before turning them in. There are also some amenities that FGLI students are automatically given. So you'll get a one-time $25 printing credit, and the WSA, which is the Wesleyan Student Association, is working to make laundry free for FGLI students starting next year. Now I'm going to give a basic overview of the academic process, starting with class registration. In July on your West portal, you will see a link open up to West Maps, where you can see all of the classes that are available to students, divided by Gen Ed designations and major. When you click on a class, you will see all types of information, but most importantly, at the bottom it will say how many seats are open to freshmen. If there are seats available, you can add the class to your requests. You can make up to 7 ranked requests for regular classes and 7 for a first-year seminar. After pre-registration, the registrar will run a system that will put you in up to 4 of those classes. Then you will have a period of time called adjustment where you can add and drop classes, and then the system will lock until the semester starts. If you're still trying to get into a class then, you have 2 weeks to submit a request to get in. One tip is to email the professor with your interest as soon as adjustment ends and again when classes start. The more you show interest, the more likely the professor is to add you in when a spot opens up. Some of my personal favorite classes have been Intro to Playwriting and a sociology class called Racing Across Africa. Even though neither of these classes count towards my majors, I loved playwriting because I got to hear feedback from other students about my work, and Racing Across Africa because I got to learn about colonialism from a Pan-African perspective, which is often left out of the historical narrative. I was really lucky to get into these classes during pre-registration, even though they are relatively high in demand. So I reiterate, if you want to get into a specific class, try to get in as early as possible and really show your interest to that professor. One thing you might be worried about when choosing classes is general education requirements. First and foremost, I will say that Gen Ed is not required. Wesleyan frequently markets its open curriculum, stating that class-wise you only need 32 credits and to fulfill major requirements to get your degree. However, there are some exceptions. If you're taking more than 2 majors or minors, or applying for Phi Beta Kappa, which is an honor society, then you will need to complete Gen Ed requirements. Some departments also require it for honors within the major, but that depends on the major. For example, both English and film do not require Gen Ed for their honors designation, but the university major, where you get to pick your own major, does. The way Gen Ed works at Wesleyan is that classes are divided into 3 categories. NSM, which is Natural Sciences and Mathematics, SBS, which is Social and Behavioral Sciences, and HA, which is Humanities and the Arts. In order to fulfill Gen Ed requirements, you should take at least 2 classes in each category by the end of your sophomore year, and 1 more class in each by the end of your junior year, for a total of 9 credits across these 3 fields. Fulfilling Gen Ed becomes relatively easy then, and a lot of students will use the opportunity to explore and decide their majors. However, I will reiterate that Gen Ed is not required. As a film student, I realized that being able to build experience in my field is much more important than taking STEM classes, which are not my strong suit anyway. Instead of spending time on courses that would not help my career, I plan to fulfill my major requirements and then take other writing and arts classes like digital editing or the musical theater workshop, which wouldn't fall under my majors, but would be helpful anyway. Whether or not you will fulfill your generals is truly up to you, and what you prioritize in your academic experience. Wesleyan also offers a variety of first-year seminars, which are only open to freshmen and limited to 15 students. These courses are usually reading and writing intensive and are focused on one topic, like Van Gogh or making documentaries. However, these classes are once again optional. You won't be any less of a student if you choose to take a first-year seminar or not. One warning though. They do fulfill Gen Ed requirements, but some won't fulfill any major requirements. Double check on WestMaps to be sure. For example, this last semester I took a class that was part of the Writing Center, but it would not count under the English major requirements. If you're looking for a fun class though, or you want to practice your writing skills, I'd still recommend trying out a first-year seminar. Grading is probably the same standard that you'll face at most universities. In one course, you'll complete a few assignments or exams and will get a final grade. It all depends on the professor and syllabus. Most classes are graded with the A through F scale, with something like a PE class or the writing workshop, which are graded mostly through participation, will show up on your transcript as CU, or pass-fail. Some classes will include a grading option, like the first-year seminars, where you'll be able to choose between the two grading modes during the first 2 weeks of classes. Again, these types of choices are up to the individual student. Most classes are small in size, so our student-professor relations are pretty close, but only if you make it close, if you're reaching out and going to office hours. Our professors are really very kind, knowledgeable, and engaging. I haven't taken a single class so far where the professor has been boring or inaccessible. 2 tips I have for getting through classes are to connect with your peers and to not procrastinate. The procrastination thing is pretty obvious, but it's so easy to fall behind while doing extracurriculars or work, but you're only letting stress build up. It's okay to take breaks from partying or other activities to catch up on your schoolwork. And the other tip is to make sure to always keep contact with at least 2 people in your classes, so that if you end up missing a class, you can always get notes from them. Okay, so now we're switching gears a bit and talking about activities outside of classwork. At the beginning of the year, we'll have a club fair where you can interact with people from all sorts of different clubs. Wesleyan has a bunch of different options for extracurriculars, from sailing club to a cappella groups to cultural activities to political action groups. Some groups are competitive to get into, like the mock trial team or theater productions, and some are relatively easy to get into, like Club Frisbee or the Wesleyan Student Association, which holds elections, but most people get in. However, do not let the competitive nature of a group discourage you from applying. This year, I auditioned for the school's Slavic a cappella group because I am Bosnian and love to sing songs in my language, the mock trial team, which I had never done before, and joined the water polo team, which I had also never done before. In the end, I got rejected from the a cappella group, so I definitely need to practice my singing, but got into the mock trial and water polo teams. I've learned so much about these activities and have had an incredible experience traveling and making friends on both of those teams. Don't limit yourself from an experience just because you think you don't have the qualifications. Do be wary of burnout, though. A lot of freshmen tend to sign up for a lot of clubs all at once, but my recommendation is to do your research and really invest yourself in 1 or 2 groups to avoid stretching yourself too thin. Greek life exists, but it's definitely not predominant on campus. There has been a lot of controversy around some of the fraternities in recent years, so at the moment there are a few societies that have housing and a few that don't. Those societies that do have housing frequently have parties, and they don't allow people to bring in substances in an effort to keep everyone safe. Because I am not a STEM major, I do not know much about the research options at school, but I do know that they exist, and they vary across fields. I know some environmental students who have gotten to travel, and another student who got to experiment with giving drugs to rats. As for work study, I have not had a good experience, but it is also completely my fault. On August 1st, there will be a website with job listings that opens up. Last year when this happened, I found a position that worked for me and attempted to get into it. I went in for an early interview, submitted a resume and cover letter, and showed a great deal of interest in hopes of getting this position. The mistake was that in trying to get this coveted job, I rejected all other work-study opportunities, so when I eventually got turned down, Most of the other places that were hiring were filled. However, out of this experience, I can now import the wisdom that you should apply to as many places as possible. Go to the job fair, ask your friends where they're working, take the position with sporadic hours or a semester of training. It's much easier to fit in a job in your life at the beginning of the semester than to try and find one in the middle of the semester. So jump on finding work-study as early as possible. To close off, here is some general information you might find pertinent as incoming freshmen. The dining plan is changing a bit for freshmen this year, but at the moment, the plan is that freshmen will have 295 meals and 250 points in the fall, and 316 meals and 250 points in the spring. Meals can be used at USDAN, which is a buffet-style cafeteria, or Summies, which is more like a restaurant. USDAN will allow students to use meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, which has now extended to their late-night cafe as well. Summerfields is only open for lunch and dinner, but they have the option of texting ahead to be able to take out your food on the go, which is convenient if you're busy and want to multitask. USDAN has vegan, gluten-free, and halal and kosher options, so if you have any dietary restrictions, they're the most accommodating place to eat. West Shop, our convenience store, is kind of a hybrid. They usually take points, but for lunchtime during the week you can get an entree, a bag of chips, cookie, fruit, and a drink for a meal swipe. Points are used everywhere else on campus, so if you want to grab coffee at Pie Cafe or a hamburger from West Wings, those will cost points. My recommendation is to use your meal swipes first. Meals will not roll over to the spring semester, but points will. And most people end up running out of points, but having meals left over. At the end of the semester, students can even donate their unused meal swipes, so don't be afraid of running out of meals. As for FGLI students, this year the school started a pilot program to keep USDAN open during breaks, and to provide FGLI students with extra meal points if they were to stay. Unfortunately, this program was interrupted by the campus closings, but it looks like it will continue as we go into the next semester. First-year students are housed randomly in dorms, but you will have a page on West Portal where you can indicate if you have a specific preference, such as for how many roommates you want, accommodations, or for some program housing like Westco or the substance-free floor. That doesn't mean you will get everything you ask for. This year, we're having significantly less people go abroad, so most freshmen will be in triples. But you will get your housing assignment in late July, where you'll be able to see what dorm you're in and your roommates. Every dorm has its pros and cons. This year, I was lucky to have a single in writer's block, but our heating got turned on a while after everyone else's, so I was freezing for a few weeks. Now I will talk about just some general financial aid information. Wesleyan scholarships are based on need-based funding, so the gist is that based on your family's income, you will be expected to pay a parent contribution, a student contribution, and a work-study contribution. The student contribution is expected to be earned during the summer, so a lot of students on financial aid have summer jobs. This gets a bit complicated if you get an unpaid internship or want to do research, but luckily Wesleyan offers a one-time summer grant that should cover the cost of the student contribution, as well as general living expenses that you might face from working for free. This summer, due to the exceptional circumstances of the coronavirus, President Roth has promised to waive summer contributions. So for this year, you don't have to worry about it. If you've gotten matched through Questbridge, then you only have to pay the student contribution. The amount you make off of work-study is considered to cover your travel and book expenses, and you don't have to pay it to the school. We have a Questbridge chapter at our school as well that plans a few events throughout the year, and it's always nice to go and talk with your fellow Questies. Wesleyan also requires all students to have insurance, which can be waived if your family already has insurance. For FGLI students, they offer the state's Medicaid plan called Husky Insurance. Personally, my family already has insurance through my dad's work, so I honestly don't know much about Husky, but don't be afraid to ask around on Wes Admits for help. Campus is small enough that you can get around walking everywhere, and you can walk down to Main Street in about 10 minutes. You really don't have to worry about having a car. There's a free grocery shuttle on Wednesdays and Sundays. You can order stuff online and have it delivered to you, Dan. Our gym is free, and on campus, there's food places just about everywhere, and if all else fails, you can always ask an upperclassman with a car to drive you someplace. Traveling from campus to Bradley Airport can get a bit expensive, but around break time, students will often post on Wes Admits asking to split rides, so if you're flexible with flight times, it might be worth the money to carpool with someone. I also remember that they have a shuttle, but that also depends on when specifically the shuttle will be going, either to Bradley Airport or sometimes to Penn Station or to Boston. To wrap things up, I'd like to just touch on a few of my experiences at Wesleyan with some likes and dislikes. I love that everyone at Wesleyan has something that they're passionate about. When you're in an environment where everyone actually cares about learning, you're able to collaborate and grow off of each other. And it's so nice to make friends with different interests and to be able to have incredible conversations with them. And while we definitely do have a party scene, students also understand consent. I don't smoke or drink and have never felt pressure to partake in anything at parties. Wesleyan also has great alumni connections, especially in the film industry, and our Career Center presents countless opportunities to help us in our career search. Finally, Wesleyan's campus is beautiful. We even have Instagram accounts dedicated just to pictures of our trees and squirrels. I remember usually every day I call my mom when I'm on campus, and I always show her some aspect, the sunset or something like that I always think is so beautiful. I will say, however, that I am not a fan of the weather. Utah is very arid year-round, so to go from dry heat and cold to wet heat and cold, and to have those awful coastal winds in the winter was definitely a shock. And there are a lot of amazing, accomplished students, but it's very real to feel imposter syndrome, especially as an FGLI student. It's important to remember that regardless of whether or not you went to a private school, or how many countries you've done volunteer work in, or if you own a Canada Goose winter jacket, we're all going to the same university. Everyone is qualified to be there, and that includes yourself. I am so lucky to have ended up at Wesleyan. Even in the midst of all this COVID-19 nonsense, I know this school is just right for me, and am eagerly awaiting the day when we can go back. Thank you so much for watching, and good luck with your journey to Wesleyan. Soon we will all be able to experience campus culture together. Stay home and stay safe.